This is CBC Vancouver News.
Housing, healthcare, the environment, public safety. At the end of those 100 days, you will have seen announcements, activity from government focused on delivering results for British Columbians.
David Eby is officially declared the new leader of the BC NDP. What he's prioritizing as he gets set to become premier.
People in the North suffer disproportionately when they don't have any kind of service, even basic services.
A system in crisis, taking you north, where some say healthcare is in shambles.
It is a godsend. I'm glad it's not pouring rain. What we don't need is flash floods.
It's been a long wait, but rain has arrived in BC. What we're watching for as the weather finally shifts. Good evening, and thanks for joining us. I'm Michelle Eliot. Dan is away tonight. We begin with the crisis in healthcare. And while the system is under pressure across BC, people in northern and rural communities say the problem there is magnified. Susanna De Silva reports.
In many communities in BC's north, if you're looking for a conversation starter, mention healthcare.
There's not enough of anything.
The ambulance service is inconsistent as well.
There was a lot more hands-on 2 years ago.
Fraser Lake resident Dorothy Fitzpatrick's husband has been waiting 2 years for a new knee. Suddenly, there's another holdup.
It was a surprise to me this week to have a referral for annual blood work and be told that the waiting list to have it done is 2 months out. So, that's a new thing.
New numbers from BC's Northern Health Authority highlight the root of the problem. 20% of all healthcare positions are unfilled. In the most remote locations, nursing vacancies are as high as 50%.
People in the North suffer disproportionately when they don't have any kind of service, even basic services.
After more than a decade in nursing, Jeremy Bennett says he's never seen it this bad. The recent drop in staffing levels pushed him out of frontline nursing.
And while I don't expect the same level of healthcare we have in Vancouver, I expect safe care.
The Health Authority covers the northern half of BC with a population of 300,000 people spread out over an area larger than France. Staffing shortages have led to a number of repeated emergency department closures, diverting people hundreds of kilometers away, often forcing patients to pick up the bill for travel and hotels.
It's a mix of anger, sadness, and despair.
A couple of years ago, this orthopedic surgeon operated on patients within about 6 months. Now he tells them he doesn't know how many years it could be. Government numbers show wait times for hip and knee replacements in the north are twice as long as the provincial average. And because of a shortage of primary care doctors and nurses, his patients are showing up in worse condition.
If those are left to fester, that is diabetes, significant arthritis, immobility, generally weakening, their results are poor.
Northern Health says it has been able to fill 90% of its nursing needs through overtime and nurses from outside the region at a greater expense. It's expanding recruiting incentives while the province is adding new medical school spaces. Good steps, but advocates say northern communities need more.
They have unique situations. They need to feel listened to, and they can come up with strategies that could work for their community.
Creative solutions, they say, are needed because people's lives are on the line. Susanna De Silva, CBC News, Prince George.
Those wait times for healthcare, while they are amplified in the north, they do stretch across BC. And tonight, a CBC Marketplace investigation is chasing accountability. Travis Danraj has this story about a Vernon teen who has had to wait years for life-changing surgery.
There's times where it just becomes painful for no apparent reason.
For nearly 2 years, scoliosis has ravaged teenager Cale Perry's body. His spine was at 58 degrees in November of 2020. That curve was at 108 degrees last month.
If he'd had his surgery earlier, it would never have gotten to this situation. He would never be this severe.
There are hundreds of thousands of Canadians on wait lists. When we crunch the numbers, we find waits for some common procedures were growing, even before the pandemic. Nearly 30% of patients weren't getting hip, knee, or cataract surgeries they needed within medically acceptable timeframes. Fast forward to now, and many Canadians are still waiting.
It's tragic
Dr. Brian Day is a leading orthopedic surgeon who owns his own private clinic in Vancouver. Day believes more Canadians should have the right to get private insurance to cover medically necessary procedures.
It's a violation of the rights of an individual when a government promises health care, fails to deliver it in a timely manner or at all, and at the same time makes it unlawful for you to take your own life and your own health into your own hands.
Health policy expert Colleen Flood disagrees.
Whenever you see public and private mix of funding, what you see are high prices and people not covered.
Back in BC, Cale Perry is finally out of the OR. The nearly 2-year delay is blamed on staff shortages, clerical issues, and unavailable ORs. How is this possible in this province that this teenager was not able to get the surgery that he needed urgently sooner?
We've gone through a pretty challenging period in BC where we've dramatically increased the number of surgeries. But for the families, I understand their frustration.
For so many, that frustration will continue as governments wrestle with how to clear the backlog and the problem that is affecting the quality of care Canadians receive from coast to coast. Travis Danraj, CBC News, Victoria.
It's official. David Eby is now the leader of the BC NDP, and he's laying out his plans for his first 100 days in office. As Premier-designate, he will replace John Horgan, and as Mira Baines tells us, he says he'll follow his government's mandate and not call an election anytime soon.
David Eby will soon become the 37th Premier of the province.
I'm humbled and a little bit overwhelmed by this moment.
The 46-year-old lawyer and politician was officially declared BC NDP leader today with caucus members in attendance. Premier John Horgan announced in June that he would step down after a battle with throat cancer to spend more time with his family. Eby's new role will mean advocating for BC with the Prime Minister.
I'm looking forward to continuing the great work that I've been able to do with Premier Horgan over the past years.
But Horgan struggled to secure things like more dollars for health care from the federal government, and Eby hopes for better luck as he goes into tackling the big issues. But Eby's leadership doesn't come without controversy, and his government is trying to move away fast from the tumultuous leadership race. His opponent, Angelia Potterai, showed up at the BC legislature yesterday after being disqualified. The party's chief electoral officer found improper coordination with third-party environmental groups and fraudulent memberships. She denies wrongdoing.
I won't be ripping up my membership. I want us to stay.
But this Potterai supporter says he wants his $10 membership fee back from the BC NDP after joining in September.
When I joined as membership, it was with the understanding that I was going to be able to vote in a democratic process for who the party leader was. And that's now not happening.
Eby's message to Potterai and her supporters today.
And those young climate activists who are committed to that issue, you are a vital part of the future of our party. I welcome you. I want to work with you.
Still, it remains to be seen how many will take that olive branch and whether the party introduces more robust climate action policies. Eby says he's eager to get started. Mira Baines, CBC News, Victoria.
To the recent municipal election now, and Surrey Mayor Doug McCallum has officially conceded to Mayor-elect Brenda Locke. McCallum initially conceded on election night and congratulated Locke and incoming Surrey councillors. But earlier this week, McCallum's Safe Surrey coalition issued a statement saying there were fewer than 1,000 votes between him and Locke and that the party's legal advisors were exploring grounds for a judicial recount. But today, the coalition issued another statement saying upon further review, it is no longer pursuing a recount. 3 people have been charged with arson to a motor vehicle and 1 count of possession of stolen property after the shooting death of Vishal Walia at the University Golf Course near UBC earlier this week.
The message to the public should be clear. This was another brazen daytime shooting, which IHIT has worked diligently and effectively to bring to charges.
The BC Prosecution Service has confirmed that Balraj Basra, Iqbal Kang, and DeAndre Dion Silvan Baptiste are jointly charged. Mounties are seeking help in locating a wanted person for breaching his release order and being unlawfully at large. Police were supposed to arrest Sean Brown on Thursday in a facility outside Logan Lake for breaching his release order. While RCMP members were there, Brown fled the area with 2 other men. The 2 others have since been located and arrested. It's believed that Brown may be in the Quesnel or Prince George area. Anyone with information is urged to contact their local police. The national handgun freeze comes into effect today, and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was in Surrey to make the announcement, surrounded by a family of gun violence victims and advocates.
We've seen too many examples of horrific tragedies involving firearms.
Trudeau says limiting the number of handguns in the country will make communities safer. Starting today, people cannot buy, sell, or transfer handguns within Canada, and they can't bring newly acquired handguns into the country. Handguns were used in 59% of violent crimes involving firearms between 2009 and 2020.
We'll continue working together with provinces, territories, Indigenous communities, and municipalities to build safer communities free from firearm violence.
The news comes as many communities in the Lower Mainland continue to grapple with gang-related gun violence. The freeze is part of Bill C-21, which is currently before Parliament. Vancouver's newly elected mayor and school board have vowed to bring school liaison officers back, a campaign promise that reverses a decision from last year. As John Hernandez reports, some parents say the program leaves marginalized youth feeling intimidated.
In a campaign rooted in public safety, Ken Sim and his ABC Vancouver slate plan to bring police back to Vancouver schools.
When we spoke with residents, the vast majority of them wanted the school liaison program back.
An election promise the mayor-elect says is also based on personal experience.
I had a really dear friend who by grade 10, he ended up in a gang. He had to pick a fight with me. And we still liked each other.
And did the cops ever fix that?
If it wasn't for the school liaison officer, I would have been in a lot of trouble.
But it's a move that will undo a recent and successful campaign to disband Vancouver's school liaison officer program.
There's been a movement across not only Canada but North America to really remove police from schools.
Last year, the Vancouver School Board voted 8-1 to remove SLOs. The decision came after an independent report found students had a range of experiences with liaison officers, ranging from supporting trusting relationships to some finding them intimidating and unwelcoming. Students who identified as Black or Indigenous were more likely to mention them as symbols of larger concerns, including racism, oppression, and abuse of power. Parker Johnson was among parents who were vocal against the program.
I think it's quite problematic given that there was consultation and a decision was made last year for them to be removed.
A sentiment echoed by members of the District Advisory Council.
We've heard from kids and parents who have felt that their kids were being monitored or surveilled, as opposed to appropriate interventions, which is really where the money should be going.
But those in law enforcement are hopeful the program's reinstatement can help build stronger relationships between youth and police and deter gang recruitment.
Having that relationship with these kids and building that rapport is imperative and crucial to building a healthy future for these kids and keeping them away from a criminal lifestyle.
A decision that will soon be in the hands of the ABC Vancouver Majority School Board, which will hold its first meeting next month. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
A couple of divers had a special visitor in the waters off West Vancouver yesterday. Take a look. The two were enjoying the underwater scenery at Ansell Point when the harbor seals came to say hello. The seals spent time investigating the divers' flippers, following them through the water, and playing with sinking leaves. While the divers were careful to give the seals ample space, they say the friendly pups just couldn't stay away. After months of dry, warm weather on BC's south coast, it finally rained today. It's not a lot, but it sure is welcome. Environment Canada says the weather pattern has shifted, with around 10 millimeters of rain predicted for the Fraser Valley and about 7 on parts of eastern Vancouver Island. Multiple rainy systems are expected over the next week. Good news for many, including farming communities.
It is a godsend. I'm glad it's not pouring rain because the ground in some places, the earth is like flour dust. And so the water actually doesn't penetrate, it just runs off very quickly. And so what we don't need is flash floods.
The rain is likely to continue through the weekend and into next week. It's considered an endangered species on the verge of extinction, but BC conservationists are celebrating a victory for some spotted owls in the Fraser Canyon. We'll tell you what's ruffling their feathers in a good way after the break. Thanks for joining us for our commercial-free live stream. For the 75th anniversary of its founding, a Montreal-based company is being honored with a new postal stamp. With their state-of-the-art simulators, CAE has changed the way pilots around the world are trained. Kate McKenna had a chance to give one a try.
On the terrestrial versus
We're unfortunately on the grass.
If you've flown recently, your pilot was probably trained in one of these. They're flight simulators built in Montreal, and now they're being honored with a new Canada Post stamp.
I think there is a lot of pride for us to be featured on this stamp. I feel like it really roots us in our Canadian heritage as a Canadian company born right here in Montreal.
To celebrate the new stamp, CAE invited us to use a simulator.
Okay, I guess I don't really need to put on my seatbelt, but...
We're going to apply some throttle to take off, and when we're going to go fast enough, just gently pull on the joystick, and the plane should do the rest.
So what?
And
oh my
we're
God.
moving.
Oh my gosh. Bad news. Okay, so I'm looking for... Oh, I'm going the other way. No, the other way, the other way.
And we're flying.
Oh my God.
Steer a bit to the right. You should see downtown Montreal with Montreal, and
that's like a video
you're
game.
going to see like Oratoire Saint-Joseph and downtown Montreal.
Easy. Maybe I'll leave journalism for this.
Now we're just leveling out.
Yeah.
But I'm way too high. Can I do a loop?
Maybe not in this type of aircraft.
Okay.
We can try to land the plane.
Okay. Overspeed. It's not looking great, guys. Hope you enjoyed your time on Earth.
Hold up. Don't sink. Don't sink.
Hey. Woo. We're unfortunately on the grass. Oh.
We went off the runway, so.
Okay, that's a bit dramatic. We would have survived.
Yeah.
Luckily, no one actually died. That's the beauty of flight simulators, according to CAE. They're both safer and better for the environment.
When you train on a simulator versus the real aircraft, you save tons of carbon.
Canada Post says making a stamp to honor CAE was an obvious choice. It says it changed the way pilots learn to fly, and it's been helping them stick their landings, even if I didn't. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Montreal.
A new Westminster couple's arcade bar has gained an extra life after what they describe as a years-long fight against outdated rules that have made it harder to do business. As our Liam Britton reports, they say they finally have a win and have now secured the right to sell canned alcoholic drinks.
You move with one and you shoot with the other, so you're moving.
Beating a 1980s arcade game like Contra or Gauntlet can be time-consuming, expensive, and frustrating. Well, that's something Marianne and Brad Ayers know a thing or two about. They own Capital City Arcade, a retro arcade. They've been making a business out of their massive personal collection of decades-old arcade machines.
It definitely is the nostalgia. Everybody comes in excited, everybody leaves excited. There's no downside to coming into work.
So while Brad and Marianne are passionate about arcades, they say turning it into a business has not been easy. It's like someone running through a maze.
It took them 3 years to get a permanent business license. They were only temporary until then. It was almost another 3 years to get a liquor license from the city and the province. They got that just last month.
It was something that we needed to expand our business. We rent out the arcade for events, and people wanted to have the opportunity to have alcohol at these events, and we just weren't able to.
They feel it didn't need to be that hard.
It feels kind of ridiculous. We have friends that have arcades in like Alberta, and it cost them, it took them 2 weeks and $200, and we're 3 years and $15,000 into this.
The city says it's always supported the Ayers business. It aims to process applications within a year, but the pandemic slowed things down and it took 13 months. The province says it had concerns about unaccompanied minors in a licensed venue that needed to be addressed over its 2-year process. Marianne suspects old ideas about arcades earned them unneeded scrutiny. Official concerns about the impacts of arcades and video games in general go back decades. That's why lawyer and Professor John Festinger, an expert on video game law, is not surprised the Ayers proposal for an arcade with alcohol got such a long look. He says their idea is growing in popularity in BC and beyond, but is still somewhat novel.
I think what you're seeing is an acceptance that of all the problems we have, video games is not really what's causing the problems in our society or the dangers in our society.
The Ayers are just glad they've got what they wanted.
It's a big relief. It's been so stressful, and now we can just concentrate on the business itself.
It's game over for their licensing fight, and they won't be seeking a continue. Liam Britton, CBC News, New Westminster.
Well, 3 spotted owls have been released into the wild. Before their release, there was only 1 spotted owl left in the wild in BC. Now it's no longer owl by itself.
They were ones that were born in 2020 and 2021, still young enough that they hadn't been super habituated into breeding.
The rare birds are considered an umbrella species, meaning the health of the spotted owl population is indicative of the health of the ecosystem. The birds were part of the provincial spotted owl breeding and release program that's run in partnership with the Spasm First Nation. The Rehabilitation Centre plans to release 20 more spotted owls next year. Here's a time lapse of downtown Vancouver. Johanna will have your full forecast coming up next.
The National with Peter Mansbridge.
Good evening. British Columbians are choosing a new government today. Bill Vander Zalm, fighting his first election as the province's new social credit premier, is up against the NDP's Bob Skelly, who's also leading his party into the fray for the first time. The styles of the two men could not be more different, and it's that difference that was central to the campaign. Karen Webb reports.
The choice given to BC voters today is clear. Do they want a popular, smiling premier who has built his platform on the twin planks of hope and confidence, but who has promised them little else?
I'm betting that people want another style of government.
Or do they want the intellectual Bob Skelly, leader of the New Democrats, who sees a better future in terms of more spending on social programs and job security for working people?
We're fighting for the seats that we hold, and we're fighting for some that we don't hold at the present time, and we feel that we can win in enough seats in this province to form the government.
There it is. Done.
Of the two leaders in this election, only Premier Bill Vander Zalm has written down his prediction for today's vote. not to be opened until after the polls closed. The polls opened at 8 this morning. Both parties have been working hard to make sure their voters turn out. The NDP because they're behind in the polls, and the Socreds because they're worried their supporters might take victory for granted. British Columbia is the only province with both 1- and 2-member ridings. In 17 of the province's 52 ridings, the voters get to vote twice. Candidates who come first and second both win seats.
See, none of them have a full address on them. Now, I don't have any money, so I'm out of luck there.
Well, you can't buy your way in, you know.
I better go get those cards.
Have you nothing with your local address?
Bill Vanderzam found out the hard way what it's like to vote without proper identification. But eventually, he did vote.
I feel as relaxed. I could start all over again. It wouldn't bother me a bit. I feel like $1 million. No problem.
It wasn't clear sailing for Bob Skelly either. He doesn't live in his own riding and had to cast an absentee ballot. It won't be counted until November.
Well, I think we've done a good job during the campaign, and I think we can win.
Liberal leader Art Lee had no trouble voting at all.
Thank you.
If Social Credit wins tonight, it will be a dramatic reversal in political popularity. As little as 6 months ago, the NDP was way ahead in the polls. Then Bill Bennett retired. Bill Vanderzam won the leadership convention, and he's been riding a wave of personal popularity ever since.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
On November 9th, join CBC British Columbia's Michelle Eliot at a free online UBC alumni discussion about decolonizing arts and culture. Register today at alumni.ubc.ca. And never miss an episode of your favorite CBC drama or comedy again with the free CBC Gem app. Check it out at gem.cbc.ca.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace, installing the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
Johanna Wagstaffe joins me now with a fall forecast for once. Joe?
It's true, Michelle. I cannot believe this is the first time that we will be talking about rain, significant rain in weeks and weeks. Okay, but full disclosure, we didn't get a ton today. It looked good, it felt good, it smelled good, but let me show you what actually fell, and it was really just a teaser. Vancouver Harbor, just 3 millimeters. However, that was the most rain we had seen since about August with one downpour, and before that, it was 11 millimeters, July 11th. Victoria getting 0.5 millimeter. We saw a lot more on the east side of the island, though. Abbotsford 5.5, and even getting that rain working its way over towards the interior. What we didn't get today for most of the province, the smoke. That cold front swept it out with the exception of the piece still under the air quality for one more day. But here's just a snapshot of this evening's green. Now, the bulk of it actually south of the border. But as I mentioned, this is really just the opening of the door to Pacific systems. We have several more moving in the days to come. We're really going to put a dent in our rain deficit, but it may take more than just a week to really make up for the lack of rain. And temperatures so much cooler than where we were at yesterday. YVR hit 17, inland 20, today 10. So we'll recover a little bit for the weekend. If you were hoping but feeling guilty about that hope that it was going to stay dry this weekend, it's actually not a washout. Saturday, a few morning showers, dry on Saturday, maybe a stray shower as we head into the afternoon, but generally a mix of sun and cloud with just a risk of showers. But look at this, as we head into the middle of next week, those reds, that's getting into the 60 to 80 millimeter bullseye. And I am watching, first of all, a stormy system for Monday, and then, Michelle, Wednesday into Thursday, that could be a bit of an atmospheric river. We'll have to watch for warnings. So now it's managing the amount of rain we get. But if you haven't already, dig out the rain boots, dig out the rain gear.
Oh, it will feel good to do so.
It will.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
That is your late news for this Friday. Thank you for joining us. And for news anytime, you can visit our website, cbc.ca/BC. Good night.